Well, Heidi-ho there. This is Caleb Jones, and this is the Sovereign CEO podcast. Here we are once again. I show men like you how to set up location-independent income, move to a better country, and or set up an international plan B, and how to do that all without spending a lot of money. Because a lot of guys in this space, most of the guys in this space only appeal to guys who make a lot of money. And in other words, guys like me. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, there are guys in the world who are not seven-figure multi-gazillionaires who want to move out of their country and escape the collapsing West and all that good stuff, so let's help them. As you can tell if you're watching the video, I am not in my usual location. I am back in my second home, Asuncion, Paraguay. I am not downtown Asuncion. I am in the nice area of Asuncion. I always forget what it's called. Spanish is so confusing. If you know the Asuncion area, I'm down near the Galleria Mall and Shopping del Sol. It's usually where I stay. I'm here for about a week and a half or so. I just left Guadalajara with my wife. We were there for about 2 weeks. And then I go back to Dubai for about 2 weeks. And then, unfortunately, I spend 30 days in the United States. Ugh, the longest I've spent in the United States by far since moving out of the United States in February of this year. So that'll be interesting. That'll be fun. I'm limited by the number of days I can spend in the United States for my tax status. So I've calculated it all out. I can spend up to 30 days there. I'm going to just celebrate holidays with family and friends and things like that. And if I am not at my usual energy level, usually guys can't tell. I'm not feeling super great. So the last big trip I took, this is a few months ago. But I take trips all the time. The last big trip where I'm hitting multiple locations and flying red eyes and all that stuff, I got pretty sick because I was pushing my body a little further than it wanted to be pushed. And after I did that, I said, okay, I've learned my lesson. I'm not doing that again. Well, I lied. I did it again, sort of. Not as bad as last time, but I push it pretty hard in terms of flights and various other things. So I'm not feeling all that great. That may or may not come across the video or the audio, but I'm just giving you that warning. I keep forgetting that once you enter into your middle age, there are things that your body says no to, even though if you are very active and have high testosterone and very healthy, you don't feel like your body will say no. It kind of happens later. I don't get tired. I don't get sore. I don't have these problems, but so I will go 100% or 120% or 150% for like several days, doing some crazy shit, not getting a lot of sleep, red-eye flights, maybe not eating 100% perfect because I'm constantly on the go through airports and things like that, spending nights in airport hotels. I mean, this weekend I spent the night in 3 different countries and 3 different nights because of some chaos with the airlines. Anyway, but I was able to do it. But after it's all done and settled, I go, okay, good, that's all done. Well, that's all over with. Good, I'm good now. And then my body goes, I don't feel good. I'm like, fuck, not again. Hopefully this is just a little thing that'll go away soon. Who knows? But Caleb, what if you have cerveza sickness? I get tested. Every time I fly, I get tested. It's part of the deal. So I have not been tested positive for that yet all year. And I've been all over the world. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm going to give you an interesting thought, interesting scenario, okay? Back when Trump was running for office, right? And all the psycho rational Trump supporters came out and said, he's going to build a wall. And I'm just rolling like, no, he's not going to build a wall, you idiots. He's going to make America great again. That's mathematically impossible, you morons. He's going to bring all the manufacturing jobs back. He can't do that. He can't put a gun to Apple's head and force them to do. He's going to lock Hillary up. No, he's fucking not. All the things that Trump supporters said he was going to do that he clearly didn't fucking do. I already did a whole video on that at my YouTube channel. Anyway, there were a small handful, not very many, but a small handful of rational Donald Trump supporters. So when I was demonstrating back in 2016, 2018, during the Trump hype, all these guys on my blog saying, oh, Trump, I'm going to come, he's so great. And I said, no, he's not going to do any of those things. Sorry, America's still collapsing. He's not going to get any of that shit done, sorry. There were a few, not very many, but there were a few Trump supporters who said, well, okay, Caleb, yeah, technically you're right. Yes, you're right. He can't save America. It's too late. Yes, he's not going to bring the jobs back. Yes, yes, yes. But, they said, if we elect Trump, get Trump in there, and we don't have Hillary in there, we can delay the collapse of the United States. We can delay it by a few years. We can delay it. So that's a good thing. And I never said this at the time, I don't think, but I thought it. And I thought to myself, why would you want to delay it? And you're like, what? Yeah, why would you want to delay the collapse? Let me explain something to you. I've said this before. This I have said before. The United States or Canada or Australia or Western Europe or whatever you consider the Western world, okay? The Western world is not going to get any better until it collapses. As I've talked about many times before, that window is 20 years past us. If you wanted to save Western civilization, the only way you can do it is to go into a time machine, go back to the 90s and start voting for people like Ross Perot, Pat Buchanan, Ron Paul, all the guys I told you guys to vote for back in the 90s, and you all said I was a moron and not realistic, and now guess what you've got. So guys like me were right. So the 90s, I would say maybe the mid to late 90s, was the last chance you had, particularly the United States, of saving the United States. That was 20 fucking years ago. You're way past that now. There's nothing you can do now. You're fucked. So the only way in which you can improve Western civilization is to wait for it to collapse and then rebuild when it's over. I have an entire series of blog articles, about 10 articles at my blogs, on how I would design, hypothetically, my own nation if I started from scratch. And I go through every aspect. I go through the Constitution, I go through tax policy, I go through foreign policy, I go through how banking and currency, I go through the welfare state. I address all these areas. And the reason I did that, not only was a fun, thought experiment, but the reason I did that was to start to get guys to realize that you're not going to save Western civilization. What you can instead maybe do is once Western civilization goes under, once the United States collapses, once Europe collapses, Canada, what have you, then maybe, and I'm not guaranteeing this, maybe you can't, but maybe a few of you guys can go start a small country somewhere, break away, and do it right. And start over and do it right. You might be able to pull that off. But that is not going to happen right now. That's not going to happen until and unless the Western world collapses. Good luck trying to convince people in Texas to secede from the United States. Good fucking luck. That isn't going to happen. I know they talk about it. There's a lot of jerking off on the internet about this. It's never going to happen. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Okay? Well, I shouldn't say never happen. It could happen way down the road if things get really horrible. But by then it's too late. See my point? You can't address the wound on your body that has a bandage over it until you rip off that bandage. Right? So you don't say, I'm going to delay ripping off this bandage for as long as I possibly can. No. You grit your teeth and you tear that bandage off and you go, this hurts, this is horrible. And then you address the wound. Right? It's kind of similar here. It's kind of the same scenario with Western civilization. So in my weird opinion, and I'm not even sure if I'm 100% there, maybe I'm 70% there. My opinion, 70%, is that if you want the Western world to get better, you want it to collapse, and you want it to collapse as fast as possible. So in other words, back in 2016, you would have voted for Hillary Clinton, gleefully, knowing in quotes, because I don't believe this, but knowing that Trump maybe would have delayed the collapse by a few years. Why would you want to extend the pain? Doesn't make any sense. So in a weird sort of way, if you want the Western world to improve, and again, I'm not 100% here, I'm not stating this as an absolute opinion I have, I'm about 70% there, you should go out of your way to vote for the worst people you can. Which is what Americans just did this year. They voted for Joe Biden. And as I've said before, back in the 2016 election, during the Democratic primaries, I was asked who was the worst candidate out of the 13, 14, 15 Democrats. I said Joe Biden. And that's the one Americans picked. So they kind of already did this. So I guess in a way, it was an overcorrection from Trump. Maybe, I don't know. But there's a lot of people who want to re-elect Trump. And I'm like, why? Assuming you're right, I don't think you're right, but assuming you're right, why would you want to prolong this? Why don't you just tear the fucking Band-Aid off and get this over with? Caleb, you don't understand. I have children. I get that excuse a lot. I have a brother who's a big Trump supporter. Caleb, I have children. I got to fight for this country. I got children. Well, that has nothing to do with the statistics and the numbers and the facts regarding Western and American collapse. You having children doesn't have an effect on this. I understand your emotions, but you're jerking yourself off. I don't want my children to live through the collapse. Oh, they will. Sorry, they will. I just had a discussion with my wife about this a few days ago. She was talking about, God, can you imagine people who have children now? People who have children in the early 2020s in the Western world. People have kids. These kids are going to have to grow up in this completely fucked up world. Boy. And I went, God, you're right. Damn. Now, what's interesting is that my wife When I first started talking about the United States collapsing many years ago when I first met her, not when I first met her, but when we started getting serious many years ago, she would just go, yeah, whatever. And she'd just roll her eyes. Now, what's interesting about that is that when I first met my wife, we were first dating, and I talked about I'm going to move out of the United States because the United States is going to collapse soon, or at least collapse in our lifetimes. She was very normal and a very typical dumb American about it. She's like, what? Collapse? America's going to, okay, whatever. Cuckoo. She just kind of rolled her eyes, which is what Americans did back when I used to talk about this stuff 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like, America's not collapsing. What are you talking about? You know what's hilarious? Side point. I have some of the exact same guys, literally the same guys, who said I was crazy back 15 years ago, 10 years ago, talking about America collapsing. Those same guys, some of those same guys, have purchased my courses on how to escape America. True story. Sometimes I remember names. Usually I don't, but sometimes names are very significant or they're weird or they stick in your memory. So yeah, so she was like that too. But today, this year especially, just a little while ago we were talking on the phone and she's like, the world's gone to shit. The whole world has gone to shit. And she gives me all these examples and I'm like, yeah, kind of what I told you 7, 8 years ago when I first met you. Yeah, I know, yeah. Now, fortunately for me, my wife does not have the American disease of if we just vote for this person will turn it all around. Or if we just vote for this political party in terms of Europeans, if we just vote for this movement or this political party, we can turn this country around and get back to greatness and get back to whatever. And thankfully, she doesn't have that disease. It's kind of nice. Most Americans do. Dumb Americans, smart Americans, what have you. A lot of Canadians have that. A lot of Europeans have that. So I'm blessed in that respect. But even she is at the point now where she's like, oh my God, this is terrible. And just especially last few months, because she pays attention to the news, unlike me. I don't consider myself an American anymore, so I don't give a shit about most of American news. I just look at some of the macro stuff as a business owner and investor, but I don't really care. But she still considers herself an American and probably always will, although I don't know about that. And so she still pays attention to everything. And every day it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Every month, every week, it gets worse and worse, and she freaks out. She used to give me shit about a little bit, not too much, because she agreed to this when I met her, or when it got serious, moving out of the country and how crazy that was, and what a big change. And I don't get a lot of complaints anymore from that. As long as we live in a nice apartment or a nice house, and she has her fucking dog, she's cool with that now because she's no longer defending America and saying, oh, America will be fine. And I'm sure the fact that she's married to me may have something to do with that, I'm sure. So I'm probably a little biased here, but anyway. But back to my original point. I am 70% there in thinking that if you really want the Western world to get better faster, and I don't care, let me make an aside on that. I've talked about this many times. I don't care about the Western world anymore. Vox Day, before he went completely insane, he had one of the best blogs on the internet prior to about 2008. He had a great blog. And he has a quote, and I will butcher it, this is not exactly what he said, but he said basically, irrational societies don't deserve to survive. Irrational societies, that sound like any societies you know? Yeah, just about all the Western ones. And I believe that too. I think if you're going to be that crazy and that insane, and in the case of Europe, that suicidal, in the case of the United States, that irrational, and again, as always, I'm talking about left-wingers and Trump supporters both, they're both equally irrational. They both have this disease. If indeed that is your culture, then I don't really give a shit about what your culture does. Years ago in my blogs, I wrote a letter. It's called A Love Letter to Conservatives. It's still in my blogs, you can look it up. And the example I gave is that you have a friend. You have a friend named Western Civ, and he's your best friend. And for the past 50 years, he's done great, wonderful, amazing things. Really accomplished some amazing stuff. But now he's lost his mind and gone insane. And you're on a beach, and you see him out in the ocean, and he's struggling, he's sinking. And you realize that he is tied to a giant sea anchor, and it's dragging him into the ocean. You're like, oh my God, my best friend. I gotta save my best friend. Because he was so amazing 50 years ago, 100 years ago, he was amazing. So I gotta save him. I gotta fight and save him. So you swim out, right? And you come up to him and you say, Western Civ, I'm here to save you. And he goes, fuck you, you rapist. And he pulls out a little pocket knife and he stabs you, like in the stomach. Not enough to kill you, but enough to make you bleed. Oh, right, now you're bleeding. You're like, what the hell? Look, dude, I'm trying to save your life. He was like, fuck you, you racist. And he stabs you again. Ugh. And you're like, ugh. And you're like, what the hell are you doing? I'm trying to save you, you dumb fuck. Let me save you. He's like, you hate women, and he stabs you again. You're bleeding again. And let's also say that I am also on that beach. I, Caleb Jones, I'm also on that beach. And I'm watching you do all this crazy, stupid shit. And I called you and say, what the fuck are you doing? He hates you. He's gonna die. He's gonna go under. He clearly doesn't want to be saved, and he hates you. Why do you want to save someone who A, hates you, and B, clearly doesn't want your help, and C, is destined to die? Why? And you give me a bunch of malarkey bullshit about, well, because 100 years ago he accomplished wonderful things. Great, he did. Is this 100 years ago? No. Or you give me some shit about, well, I have kids. What does that have to do with it? What the fuck? You're insane. And as the metaphor goes, he keeps stabbing you, and now you're losing blood, and now you're dying because you keep trying to save him. I don't have that problem. I moved on from emotionally connecting with Western civilization many, many years ago. I don't remember when that moment was, but it was many years ago where I said, all right, I'm done. I'm done with this. You guys keep voting for psychos like Trump, Obama, Bush, Biden. Go ahead and then the European equivalents. Go ahead and keep doing this. I'm getting the fuck out of here, and I'm reorging my life so that I don't have a problem when, not if, when Western civilization collapses in my lifetime. Have fun. And since moving out of the United States this year, in February this year, February 8th of 2021, my last day as an American. What a great day that was. God damn, I felt so good. Since that day, I really don't give a shit. I don't care. So, circling back to what I said. If you care, I don't think you should. I think you should be outcome independent about it and focus on yourself and your inner circle. But if you care, I don't care if you're a Trump guy or a left-winger or what, I don't care. Then what you should do, honestly, if you really want the Western world to get better sooner, is to vote for the absolute worst politicians to take power and let them do whatever they want. So if you're a Trump supporter, you should have voted for Hillary, and you should have supported all the left-wing insanity. Yes, make minimum wage $20, $30 an hour. Do it right now. Yes, print up trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars, because nothing bad will happen because we owe it to ourselves. Great. Print up quadrillions of dollars. Why not? Go for it. Fucking go for it. I told the MMT guys that why not on January 1st of every year just have the US government print up $100,000 tax-free for every American over the age of 18 and just give it to them. Why not do that? If it doesn't matter because we can print all the money we want because we owe it to ourselves, why not do that? And then listen to the guy explain why his points are wrong. I've done it several times, fantastic. Or watch him run away and not answer the question, that's more often. But let him do all that shit. Let him do all that. If you are a left-winger and you think Trump was Hitler, you should be voting for the worst Republicans you can possibly think of. If you seriously think these are the worst people for the country, that's what you should be doing. You should. And again, I'm not 100% there. I got to keep saying that. But I'm 70% there. If I gave a shit, which I don't, I honestly think if that's a big priority to you, if you want to save your country or get to a better place in the Western world, you're not going to get anywhere until it collapses. Therefore, you might as well collapse it as fast as you fucking can. And, I am curious, if you disagree with me, where you disagree with my logic. Right? Where do you disagree with that? I can't think of a rational counter argument to what I just said, other than I'm scared, other than an emotional argument. So I said rational argument. I can't think of an objective, rational argument disputing what I just said. And if you can think of one, a rational, objective argument, let me know in the comments, let me know. And maybe I'll reconsider my viewpoint because I'm not 100% there. I can't think of a rational one, if that's really what you care about. I can think of irrational ones, but not a rational one. Now, obviously, my entire viewpoint is to not give a shit about any of this. Right? My viewpoint is you focus on yourself. If you have small children, focus on them. If you have a OLTR or wife in your life, focus on her, and that's it. And save yourself, save your inner circle, kids, wife, things like that, those of you who have those things. Get the fuck out of the country, which means you need location-independent income, Alpha 2.0 income. Get some location-independent income, build up a location-independent business. There's a lot of resources I have on how to do that. You can join the 6-Figure Warrior Mentorship. That's still open for a few more weeks. Not much longer, but a little longer. And that's what is that? That's alphafocusprogram.com. But I have a lot of other resources for that, both paid and free. Get your location-independent income up and running. Get the hell out of your collapsing, horrible Western country. Get residency in a country that is much better, or at least much less bad. And that's it. Or maybe that's not it completely, but that's the foundation. That's what I've chosen to do. And there's a reason why I am probably the happiest American I know, even though I don't consider myself an American. A little faux pas there. But I know a lot of Americans, and I can't think of one American who is happier than me. Interesting. Because most Americans I know are still sitting in America, bitching about mask mandates, right? Bitching about Republicans, bitching about the economy, bitching about all kinds of shit. No thought given to moving out of the country, no thought given to location-dependent income, no thought given to their personal sovereignty or their personal liberty, no thoughts on any of this stuff, just a lot of political anger. So that's really it. If you disagree with me, let me know. And as always, you better make your arguments rational and objective and fact-based. Not "you suck, Caleb," or "I would never do that," or "I just can't stand by watching my..." These are all emotional reasons. I don't function in that world. You don't want to base your lifestyle structures around your feelings, because your feelings are usually wrong. They're not always wrong, but they're usually wrong. Instead, I've talked about this before, you base your lifestyle structures on rationality and objectivity, and you fuel them with feeling. I base all my lifestyle structures, all my mission, my goals, everything I do in my life, my woman life, my marriage, my businesses, everything with the possible exception of losing body fat, which is my 1 weak area. Everything in my life is based on objective rationality, and then I back it with a strong emotion. I'm very excited about my goals. Very excited. Very excited. But I don't make my decisions with emotions. I make my decisions with logic and rationality, and then I back them up with emotions. That is the opposite of what most human beings do, particularly modern day Westerners. Double particularly people who are hardcore into politics. Hardcore woke left-wingers and hardcore angry Trump supporter type guys. Yeah. So let me know if you think I'm wrong. I can't see how I'm wrong, but you guys let me know. You educate me. All right. See you soon. Bye.